What's up, guys? Leaf Green Goblin here. Today, I wanted to talk about the phenomena that is nostalgia. Kind of talking about how I feel like everybody feels nostalgia, but they don't always put a price to it. What is the price of nostalgia for any collector or person in their life, in their lifetime? How do they experience nostalgia really? And to make sure this video isn't an hour long of me just rambling and trying to explain every little thing that pops up into my head during this video, I'm gonna be showing off a couple of items that I collect outside of Pokemon. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.
Let's move along to show and tell now, shall we?
Two questions I hope that maybe you guys can ask yourselves at the end of this video, or maybe you have an answer by the end of this video is, do you feel like you project nostalgia onto other people? Let's say, for example, we all collect, maybe I hope maybe you collect Pokemon. Uh, do you think that if you're nostalgic for one thing, do you also assume that other people are going to be as nostalgic for it in the future as you do, or as you will? Do you have a hierarchy of nostalgia? Do you have lots of other things besides maybe Pokemon that you're very nostalgic for that you might not spend a lot of money on? And is it always to I do want to talk about this is it always just, well, I don't have enough money. And if I had all this money, I'd be collecting all these different things because I'm nostalgic about all of it. So kind of how I this video first popped up into my head was I was thinking about how much nostalgia really drives my collection, and I think more for others than maybe myself, even though nostalgia has a big impact on my collecting habits. But when I was trying to look back and reminisce on stuff, and I was thinking, I'm nostalgic about a lot of other things: Harry Potter, Yu-Gi-Oh, Naruto. I was really big into Transformers, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles. And when I look through a lot of my collection, I don't really have all of these things represented. And a big one that I thought of was sports. I'm a pretty big sports guy, and yet I really have, one thing I can show you guys is this signed Michigan State Le'Veon Bell football. And it's funny to me because I'm a big Packers and Bucks fan. I went to Michigan State, but I never watched Le'Veon Bell play for the Spartans. I'm not a big Steelers fan. I don't really like the Steelers. And yet I still spent money on that football over an Aaron Rodgers jersey. Now, part of it is it's more expensive, but I thought about the consumer behavior is just very interesting. I just don't think there's a definitive answer, which is why I'm really here to speculate. I guess one reason why I said that sports wasn't, maybe I'm not as nostalgic, or I don't have a bunch of a big sports collection, is because a lot of the collections, or a lot of my collectibles, are more art based. I like to chase art and just an aesthetic. And for me, sports cards, signed jerseys, most of that stuff to me is just kind of like photography, and I'm paying a lot more for that, for a signature. I don't know. I feel like the core of the memory is watching the game. And then I showed you this football here, but this football was not two, three. I think it was like with fees and everything, $100. So I guess I'm not really willing to spend that much on sports. But then I thought about it, like, am I as nostalgic for Pokemon as much as I am for sports? I'd say I have more nostalgia for Pokemon, but 10, 20 times, because that's how much more I spent on Pokemon than on sports memorabilia. So that's something I thought about. Is it maybe because I know that there's a lot of people that are into Pokemon, and that I'm more I believe I can sell some of my collectibles down the line compared to maybe like a random signed sports player. I'm not sure. But besides sports, another thing I thought about was Yu-Gi-Oh! And how when I was a kid, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was really a pretty big part of my childhood for a lot of years. I was watching the show more than the Pokemon show, and I had a lot more Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards than Pokemon. But now I've grown up and I've noticed I just don't have anything Yu-Gi-Oh related, and for some reason it's not really on my list of things to buy. Traitor! And I don't really know why. I think it's aesthetic, going back to like stuff I chase. I think it's aesthetically pleasing. A lot of like the dragons, and some even like the Toon Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, Yu-Gi-Oh GX, the kind of cyber futuristic monsters, creatures, whatever they are. They interest me, and yet, and then also it's not as expensive as Pokemon, and yet it doesn't it's not really a big part of my collection. And I want to give you guys some examples that some stuff that's really is part of my collection that I don't spend a lot of money on, which kind of counteracts, Yu-Gi-Oh! Why has it never been, part of my collection? I'm a big Harry Potter fan, but I only spent maybe $10 on this troll. He's got a little Dragonite Burger King keychain. I have can you see in the back? Right there. Got a big ass, oh, excuse my lap. Big Hagrid in the back, and that's about it. I have a Slytherin sweater, and I love Harry Potter. I read the books and all of that, and I watch the movies all the time, and it's just for some reason I don't want to pay the Lego prices, the Lego set prices. I don't want to pay the Star Wars set prices. Moving into that, I have some stuff here. Here's an example of how nostalgia has translated over time, I guess, is I have these two from the Phantom Menace, the Sebulba and Anakin pod racers. And yeah, these I think were like 20 bucks each. And I still have not displayed them or anything. But for some reason, I saw them and it really stuck out. I mean, it's not my favorite movie, but the pod racer scene was very nostalgic for me. And I don't know, it's very odd how nostalgia can kind of how you navigate through collectibles with nostalgia sometimes. Because when I showed the troll and I showed Hagrid in the back. I mean, they're not my favorite characters. I do love Hagrid, but I don't like him as much as maybe Harry or Voldemort, and I don't have a bunch of that type of stuff in my collection really at all. And then it kind of going against nostalgia. Like, why do I have this? Can someone please explain to me like why I won't buy something for like Yu-Gi-Oh or Power Rangers again, but then I have a Dr. Zaius figure that's I just left it in the box. I saw this. I mean, I really do like this movie, and I like the character, but I don't like him as much. Okay, I was gonna say I don't like him as much as Darth Vader, but I actually do have a Darth Vader figure. But again, it was like $10, $15, and I saw Planet of the Apes maybe 5 years ago, and yet I decided to pick one up at a store that I saw, and it just kind of makes you think that sometimes I think nostalgia is very valuable. Obviously, that's why I'm spending money on cardboard and plastic. It seems like sometimes it's not always the end all be all for like how it shapes your collection, and it's interesting that kind of journey when you go on the journey of collecting. It's there's ebbs and flows. Like in Pokemon, sometimes I'm really feeling nostalgic and I'll go and throw a bunch of money on some cards. And then there's other times where I'm buying cards that I think are pretty expensive. I have no attachment to them. And it's just like, oh, I think the art is cool. On top of like the Planet of the Apes, another example I want to give you, I mean, is Final Fantasy here. This is Seymour from Final Fantasy X. He's all dusty because his arm broke off, and he's missing this thing. This is under my bed, and I need to do some glue work on him, so he's all messed up. But I wouldn't say that was cheap, but again, Final Fantasy, something I really didn't get into until my college days, and I mean I'm 26. Like, can you have nostalgia in 3, 4 years? Some of the Sword and Shield people would say that some people are going to be nostalgic for Sword and Shield in 2, 3 years. Nostalgia, I think it's a spectrum, so you never know. But I think for me, Final Fantasy is because there's a game attached to it. And again, the aesthetic, the art, maybe that's why I am willing to spend money. I bought a big collection of Final Fantasy cards recently, and it's not the trading card games. They're literally they kind of look like postcards. They're just little art pieces, but I really resonate with the art style. And yeah, I just another reason why I came up with this video is that I bought those cards, and I was like, why am I not getting Yu-Gi-Oh cards? I thought nostalgia was driving my entire collection, and it doesn't always seem to be the case when I look through a lot of my kind of my collectibles here. I guess here, oh, another Star Wars guy got a Rancor eating a little Tin Man, put him in his mouth. I don't know. I'm kind of whatever. Kind of why another point I wanted to talk about in nostalgia was how, for example, in Pokemon, I know people who were going out and they were texting me to go hang out with them in a graveyard to try and catch some a Gengar and during the Pokemon Go days. But they don't have any Pokemon stuff right now. Going back to Harry Potter, I know some people who will binge watch and like have it go on a Harry Potter marathon, but they won't read the books. And it's very interesting that, I'll have conversations with people about Pokemon and they seem interested and they don't have any ties to Pokemon. And but then like they won't put like a couple dollars towards, I don't know, a figure or maybe a t-shirt or something like that. I'll show somebody my collection, a friend of mine, and be like, "Oh man, I remember I had that card as a kid," and they might tell me some story. So obviously there's some nostalgia there. But again, they won't spend $20, maybe $30 to get a couple cards, put it in their room. And I think with nostalgia, I think everyone does feel nostalgia, but I don't think everyone I think not everyone attaches feelings to material objects all the time, and maybe that's a bigger discussion, just kind of materialism. I think there's some people, when I think about with clothes, I really should have bought the shoes. I might add on to this video later, but how some people they just see clothes, it's just clothes, and you put it on, and like unless your grandma knitted it for you or something, there's really no attachment to it. Whereas for me, if I'm a big fan of an artist and the artist collabs with a shoe company and I like the shoe, even if it's really expensive, I'll buy it and I'll put it in a case or something, and I want to display it down the line. And when I look back at that shoe, I just think of the memory as me Googling runways and looking through it, and it really has no relation to the shoe. But I think the shoe is cool. But I just when I hold that shoe, I just think of all the times, I was really reading about fashion and whatnot, and I don't think everyone has that. I'm not saying I'm special, obviously, because there's a lot of collectors out there. But I think there's some people where, when they get older, cards are just it's a card. It's just it's cardboard. And for them, why would they spend 50, $100 on a card when they can go watch like a 5-minute Pokemon clip on YouTube or spend maybe $10 on a shirt or I don't know, go walk by, see somebody wearing Pokemon, and that's enough of just a memory pops into their head, and that's all they need. And obviously on a serious note, on a more serious note, there could be, some people might have nostalgia for, trauma really has an impact on their nostalgia, meaning, maybe an album or, a video game got you through a breakup, got you through a breakup, some depressing times, a divorce, your parents' divorce, anyways. So there's all different types of reasons why, some people might be more nostalgic about something than others. But I think I just don't, another reason why I wanted to make this video is I just don't think it's as black and white as some people think, where, oh, it's because you have a lot of money, so you buy all these collectibles. But, I do think it's the hierarchy of certain things that make you really kind of really it just again, I just think it's interesting. I really like Power Rangers. I think uh, man, I like Power Rangers and Transformers. I really like Godzilla too, and it's not none of it's part of my collection. I might get some Godzilla stuff eventually, but it's weird that I'll spend so much on Pokemon, so much more on Pokemon than anything else that I collect, and yet I wouldn't say again that Pokemon is, I love it 30, 40 times, 20 times more than these other things that I collect. And, there's obviously certain nuances, because Pokemon has a video game behind it. I've had legitimate hours spent, building memories in the video games compared to maybe Yu-Gi-Oh, where it was mostly like I watched the show as a kid. But maybe a show like that's 20 minutes, maybe for a couple of years as a kid compared to video game. I probably have a couple Pokemon games with hundreds of hours into it, let alone the YouTube Pokemon stuff I watch. Anyways, I'm curious for you guys, what kind of things do you collect maybe outside of cards? I know this is a card collecting channel, but do certain mediums or certain type of, like plushes, if you collect plushes, is that a different feeling of nostalgia or just kind of memories or compared to cards or like posters, or how much you value autographs of like a voice actor, for example, stuff like that. I think it's you can, that's why people collect, is that there's just so many other things and so many different things that you can interact with IPs and just stuff that you cherish, and also how much does like art style and like aging. How well does it like something age well for you? You know, part of the reason why I think, you know, now I'm thinking out loud why Power Rangers, I don't have much stuff of it, is that just the show didn't age well for me compared to maybe like the Pokemon video games, Final Fantasy, you know, the art, you know, even though I don't play cards and I really have only played one and a half of the Final Fantasy games. And again, you know, I'm not that nostalgic for it. I only started playing maybe a couple of years ago, some of the games, and I don't have memories playing with my friends. I don't know anyone who likes Final Fantasy in my social circles. And yet I'm so in love with some of the art that I'll put my money behind it. But then something like Yu-Gi-Oh that you know, or Digimon, you know, I had a Digimon video game as a kid and Kirby as well, and it just doesn't seem like it translated down the line. So yeah, a bit of a rant here. I showed off a couple of stuff. Did I show this off? This is what I'm talking about with not like Naruto, for example. Why do I have a Neji plush? I have an Itachi plush, but then I don't have any figures or cards or, you know, graded cards. But then I'll be into Pokemon graded cards. But then I won't have any Pokemon sealed games, even though I like the video games more than the cards. And the money I spend on Pokemon cards, I could definitely buy a couple sealed Pokemon games, even though they're, you know, pretty expensive. So yeah, I've been jumping around a lot and you know, hopefully the editor saves me here. Please let me know in the comments or, you know, share what your opinions on this. I know I didn't really get down to the bottom, the nitty-gritty of what really nostalgia is for everyone, but I do think that's kind of impossible. So I just wanted to share my opinion and some thoughts I've been going through my head. Have a good night, guys. Peace out.